We are a global network of accountants around the world. Our primary mission is to help accountants and a small number of business advisors help their client have a better life by creating and developing a better business. That's essentially what we do. So our goal really is to help accountants become more relevant insofar as they can and should be providing business advisory services.
Hi, I'm, as you say, I'm Paul Scholes from Trio Associates, based in South London. Small sole practitioner, having been through 30, 40 years of various practices and lots of clients. And now sitting back a bit and taking stock of what's been going on.
I run Emmaus Bristol, which is part of an international network of organisations that help homeless people. But I'm a social entrepreneur. I set things up, and I was involved in setting up Emmaus Bristol along with 5 other charities, which help those who are most disadvantaged in society. So that's what I do.
I think there are a couple of things that they can do. One of them is to make it very clear to those clients who will not work with them that they will not continue to be clients if they want to have that type of relationship, that the value an accountant brings to the table in very large measure is going to be the result of a collaboration or cooperation, if you will, between the client and the accountant. I know of some accountants who have implemented a policy whereby they've said, as a for example, if you're going to deliver a set of incomplete books in the shoebox with a bunch of receipts, then our fee will be £3,000 a year. If you order those into some sort of order so that we can very quickly put them into shape, then you will save yourself £500. If you give us a trial balance and reconcile accounts receivable and payables, then we will charge you £1,000. In other words, they're saying if you want us to do all of this work, then you will pay for it. But my very strong recommendation is that you need to educate your clients, provide them with robust systems that will enable them to get the work to you on time and in the form that you require it, or let them go. And finally, Rachel, if I could also mention, I think the cloud does open an opportunity for people to provide that type of service and be over those accounts more than just once every year when they bring it in. So I think there are some developments in technology that are going to facilitate a significant improvement in the relationship between accountant and clients and also in the workflow systems that can be put in place.
I agree wholeheartedly with what Ric's just said. I also think that we need to take some responsibility ourselves for having generated a situation where our collaboration and working with clients is stuck in the way it's always been done. A lot of accountants I've spoken to and worked with tend to continue the practices they've continued for 10 years because they've always continued those practices and not looked to perhaps change or even look at different ways of doing things. And certainly the cloud is a great example of that, because the cloud opens up huge possibilities, but a lot of firms are using the cloud the way that they used their land-based systems before, so they're just shifting working practices onto somebody else's computer effectively and not taking full advantage, mainly because they're too busy working with the heading books rather than looking up and seeing where they're going and where they've been. So as I said, I think there's a certain amount of inertia within the practice community, and we do bear some responsibility in bringing some change in ourselves and not relying on clients to demand things, because quite often clients don't know what they want.
What accountants can do most is educate, actually. I believe that most small, medium-sized businesses, I mean, people are educated in accountancy, so they need systems that are easy to operate. I'm involved in a number of charities, and one set of accountants local to Bristol, somebody who's not particularly well qualified but can do some of the input, does the input, and every month the accountant puts the figures together for the management accounts, which is absolutely essential. It's no good coming to the end of the year and you find you've made a whacking loss. I mean, you probably should know anyway because you haven't got cash in the bank. But actually, it's essential that that companies do know, and charities, small charities, do know that where they're going.
I think Richard's answer and Paul's observation in that previous conversation is right on the money, that if all clients were like Richard and all accountants were like Paul, the world would be a different place. Is the reality. Richard is saying accountants should be thinking forward. They should be looking at a set of accounts as a basis for framing some strategies, forward-looking strategies and so on. And Paul is saying we accountants have a responsibility to communicate and to educate with our clients and alert them to the fact that we can do this type of thing. But you really do need to have a compliant client in order to do that. And the challenge, I think, is, and I totally agree with Paul, I think as a profession we have been pretty slack and we've allowed clients to get away with stuff. They've set the agenda for us, and it's now, you know, the cost of that coming to roost in our own business. But I most definitely think that accountants will bring most value to the table to those clients in respect of whom they can literally create value. And they are not clients who are just blocked to the idea that an accountant can work with them and help them develop strategies and improve the way in which they're running their business. And quite frankly, I think it goes way beyond just doing cash flow projections and projected profit and loss statements and so on. It does involve meeting on a regular basis, looking at non-financial key performance indicators. It does involve them engaging in the decision-making processes within the firm. And that, I think, is an absolutely invaluable service that could be provided to businesses, and I would include non-profits in that. I quite frankly don't see any difference between a business organisation and a non-profit. It's just their franchise is slightly different. But I'm heartened by what both Richard and Paul said, because I think there's an opportunity out there for accountants and for business people to realise that through collaboration and cooperation that everything could change and change very rapidly.
One of the main things about collaboration is that it's we now have the ability to share responsibilities and work with clients. Whereas it's very difficult. In the past, it was quite easy if you're geographically separate to break work up into boxes. But quite often, what happens there is that the work can fall in between the gaps, or you get crossovers. Now, with cloud, for example, and other electronic procedures, we can share the work with clients. My view has always been that if the client can do it and is happy to do it, the client should do it. I shouldn't get involved. I should step back and watch them, supervise, monitor, and then come in when I'm needed. And also it helps me steer things and to see what's likely to happen.
Well, we run a social enterprise, so we're in the market, and the biggest risk is actually other competitors. I think put on top of that is the risks that come with the thing what we do. So we run a social business with people who used to be homeless, and that comes with another pile of risks. I think that we are in the charitable sector particularly risk averse because we've got so much legislation on us, and actually most trustees are worried that if they get things wrong, actually they're going to be in serious trouble. So there's a lot of onerous legislation, and I remember in my first year we were audited 4 times by 4 different organisations. We had a VAT, we had a PAYE, we had the Charity Commission, we had our own auditors, and that was in 6 months. So I think we're very, very heavily regulated. So getting things wrong is not really an option.
Very small businesses, or SMEs generally, but the smaller they are, they tend not to have very good internal control processes in place. So there is a very significant amount of fraud and loss through theft and so on that occurs in small enterprises, much of which goes undiscovered because the owner just doesn't know what's going on, because more often than not the owner has no idea what the accounts mean and so on. But I think that's one part of the risk that I would be addressing. The second part, though, I think is the risk of the lost opportunity. I think our entire accounting system is transactional in nature, not transformational, and as a result of that, it only measures transactions that actually occurred. It doesn't measure the customer who was not well treated and never returns and tells 26 other people about it. It doesn't measure the loss that's incurred when a disenfranchised employee leaves through bad leadership, bad management, and so on, and then has to be rehired, or all the backstabbing and the whining and whinging that goes on in the background. And that, I think, is probably a more severe or more significant cost to most SMEs than they recognise. And so the solution, I think, is to have SMEs understand that they need to become better leaders, they need to become more familiar with accounting systems, they need to work with external advisors, mentors, coaches, and so on, who can help them address these kind of issues. And who better than their most trusted advisor